course I knew I would miss the Bullitt. It was really hard to let the car go in the first place. But I was content knowing that I had a great time with the car. I had built it up the way I wanted it, and it was in good hands now. The car was being very well taken care of. The new owner didn't drive it a whole lot, and they weren't abusive to the car. And so I was pretty happy the way it was. I was happy that the car was in good hands, and I didn't have any intentions of getting the car back. I always knew that it would be cool to get it back, and as a matter of fact, as I started making this whole series about the story of the Bullitt, I knew it was going to take several parts. Everybody was asking when they were going to see the story about the Bullitt because it was such a special story. Some people didn't even know I had sold the car. And I started thinking it was about time, and a few months ago I started part 1 of the video. I knew there'd be several parts to this video because it's such a long story, and it's been a great story. And about halfway through, although I've always thought how cool it'd be to get the car back, about halfway through making this series I thought how cool would that be to just open up the garage and have the Bullitt sitting there on the final part of my video to show I got the car back. How exciting is that? And I knew a lot of people would love it, and of course I talked it over with my wife and everything, and we were saying no, that's not in the cards for us. We already bought the Cobra, we've already done a bunch of different things, we bought a new house. It's not time to have the Bullitt back, and probably won't be a time to have the Bullitt back. But the guy I sold it to had contacted me as he started watching the series on the Bullitt, and he said, "Hey Justin, I really think you should have this car back. If you ever want the car back, I'm not going to put it for sale or anything, but if you ever want the car back, it's yours. You just say the word, you can have the car back." And I replied and said, "Thank you, I really appreciate that. I'd love to have the car back, but it's just really not going to happen right now." And he said, "Okay," and then some time went on, and I got a message from him again, and he said, "Justin, when I watch these stories about the Bullitt, I can't help but feel like this is your car. This is Justin's Bullitt. This will always be Justin's Bullitt. You built this car. It's a huge part of you. I'd like you to have the car back." And I said, "Thanks, I really appreciate that, and I would like to have the car back, but it's just not a good time right now." And then he came towards me again and said, "Look, I really would like to sell the car now. I'm doing a lot of things. I'm getting married in a couple months. I'm putting a new roof on my house. I need a car that I can drive in the winter, something I can drive year round, and I'd really like you to have the car." And I want to say before I go any further that he made this happen. He was really cool about this, and he said, "I'll sell it back to you for a really good price. I really want you to have the car back." So I have to give him credit because he's the one that made all of this happen. So after some negotiating, talking with my wife, actually begging on my knees, it wasn't easy, but I did get to the point where we agreed that it was kind of okay if I bought the car back. But I was really in a position where I thought this would be really good to do, and I'm really excited, and I got really happy and excited about the idea that the Bullitt would be coming home. And so the first thing I had to do was work out the logistics of how I was going to go get the car. It was about 6 hours away. I could have driven up there with the family in the Tahoe and made a big trip of it, but then you have to drive the Tahoe back and the Mustang. And even though I'd have tools and a possible tow vehicle in case something went wrong, I thought it'd probably be better if I just did what I did the last couple times, where I get a ticket on a Greyhound bus. I can ride up to Salt Lake City, which is about 4 or 5 hours away. Then I can get on another bus and go up to the town of Brigham City, where the Bullitt has been living for the last couple of years. And there were a couple things I wanted to do when I got there, and you'll see those coming up. And so as you can tell, I was very nervous. I was at this little reservoir with my family, playing, having a good time, and the whole time I was just thinking about the Bullitt and how I was going to get it, and I was real nervous. I wanted to bring that car back here. And if you look around this area, I have pictures of the Bullitt around here. I've driven it through those mountains over there. So every time I come out there, I think of these pictures of the Bullitt. I remember driving around out in that beautiful Red Rock area, and those memories always kind of hurt to be out there and look around and remember all the good times of taking the Bullitt out there and going out with friends, having some photo shoots out there. just a beautiful place to go. Here's a picture of all of us going out there for a photo shoot. And so being out there was always kind of hard for me, but now I was going to get the Bullitt. I was going to bring it back here where it belongs. After we went to that lake, we headed up to the mountain range you see there with the snow on top. It's not snowy this time of year, but we were headed up there to those mountains for an event that my wife had with the homeschool group for our kids. And we were going to be passing this little side road, which is one of the last places I went with the Bullitt. I took pictures of the Bullitt here, and I knew we were going to be passing it. It's kind of up in the middle of nowhere, and headed up there, I knew that I'd be passing that road. I could look over and just see the Bullitt parked there. But before we went up here into the mountains for the evening for this trip, I wanted to make sure to buy the tickets for the Greyhound because I didn't want anything to get in the way. I wanted to go up and get the car the next day. I had agreed to it. Before we left, I wanted to buy the tickets, and the printer wasn't working to print my tickets out, but I had to try to do what's right and be a family man. As long as the tickets were purchased, I would worry about it when I got home, and we went up into the mountains to have this event. It was kind of cold, it was kind of windy. I love spending time with my family, and that's all fine, so I just tried to play with my kids, just enjoy the time that I had with them, and that's fine. But inside I was really anxious to get a move on. I wanted to go home and print the tickets out, make sure everything was ready, and I needed to get out of there because it was just time to go and pack. I needed to get my tools ready, I needed everything. I needed a reason to leave, and then this happened. I need some reason to leave here so I can go get my Bullitt. We're stuck up here in the mountains with a group of people. Oh wait. That's right. It started snowing, and that was my ticket out of there. So I got home and I got the printer to work, printed the tickets. I needed 2 of them because there'd be a transfer. So I worked everything out. I got all my tools ready, got my clothes, everything I needed. And I caught the first Greyhound at 4 in the morning. We stopped in this little gas station on the way up there, and I just had to get out of the bus for a minute and go check out some toys in here. There's a Boss 302. Thought that was pretty cool to look at. And this whole time I'm just thinking about going to get my car, of course. It's the only thing on my mind. I was trying to rest a little bit, try to relax through the bus ride, but it's hard. The sun started coming up, and it's just hard to sleep when you're really excited. So here's a little bit of driving through there. This is a little town called Fillmore. It's about halfway to Salt Lake City from where I am, and the bus stopped here for a 20-minute break, and so I just got out and recorded a little bit and just thought about, well, here I am, this is what I'm doing. Really excited. I don't know how it got to this point, but here I go. I ate a sausage burrito because I was just hungry and there was nowhere to eat. It was real early in the morning. But as we passed through northern Utah, I did see a lot of temples that I knew of for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and those are very special places to me, and it always brings me comfort to see the temple. It's a beautiful place. It's where my wife and I were married in one of the temples, and so I love seeing those places. They're very special places to be. And so as we traveled through, I kept an eye out for temples, which is really funny because over the years I'd always be looking for Mustangs, which I still do, but I was also more interested in seeing the temples and thinking of the happiness it brings in my life. It's more happiness than the cars have ever brought me or ever will. But as we are traveling through here, I can see glimpses of the Draper Temple, and it's funny because you can barely see it up there, but the Draper Temple is one of my favorite places. This is when my wife and I went there, when it was being dedicated and opened up. And so here's just some pictures of how beautiful that temple is. And I'm just saying that I love going through northern Utah, seeing all these beautiful temples. In all of Utah, there's about 25 temples that are either operating or will be operating in the coming years. But there's the Draper Temple, the Salt Lake Temple. This is where I went with my wife to the Salt Lake Temple. So as I'm going through northern Utah, I'm thinking of all these temples I've gone to with my wife, and I'm trying to be humble and grateful. I know I've been doing a lot with cars. I've been buying a lot of cars lately. This is us at San Diego Temple, for anyone who might know where that is. And this is the new Adobe Center. There are a lot of jobs moving to northern Utah, a lot of tech jobs, and it's becoming a really nice place to work. This is Point of the Mountain. You can see all the people parasailing up there. So that's really neat. There's always some wind right there. This is right as we're getting into the Salt Lake. So this is the Salt Lake Valley. There are so many cities that all join together to make this. And my friend lives out here. He was a missionary companion with me in Paraguay. We became very good friends when we were in South America together. And so I decided to see if he was going to be around that day and we could hang out. And the last time I drove the Bullitt all the way up there to Salt Lake was to his wedding. So that was actually kind of cool because now I'll be in Salt Lake again with the Bullitt. It's the only time I've taken my Mustangs to northern Utah besides when I got married. We had our honeymoon up this way. But anyway, here I am at the Salt Lake City Airport, and it was cold. I was in the shade, I had my big jacket on and everything, and I went and stood in the road there in the sun while I was waiting for the buses to come when there was nobody coming, of course. Finally, I got on to the next bus that would take me to Brigham City. So here's leaving the airport. You can see all the airplanes there, and this is just where the bus would go. And so as we made our way northern, there's a really cool Air Force Base right here, Hill Air Force Base, and there's the museum. I love going to that museum. I can spend hours in there. They actually have a real SR-71 Blackbird in there. And so when I was younger, I'd go there a lot. I've spent a lot of time in that museum. I actually got to put my hands on the controls of that SR-71. I used to be a cadet in the Civil Air Patrol, and we would spend about 10 days a year at Hill Air Force Base. We get to go listen to F-16s taking off. It was so awesome. So anyway, making our way to northern Utah towards Brigham City, he sent me a video and said the Bullitt's ready to go. So I told him that I was a little bit early actually, and I was waiting right here at this Maverick gas station, and that's right in Brigham City, and I knew he'd be coming from around here somewhere. I was getting real excited to see the Bullitt again. It's been 2 years since I've seen the car, although I've been keeping up on it on Instagram and seen it, but I knew it'd be coming up over that hill. And you can hear I'm a little excited, a little nervous. I bet we'll hear it coming up over this hill. It felt like forever, but here it comes. Went to a little back road. He let me drive it for a minute, but I was real anxious. I said, let's go to the bank and pay it off right now. He still owed some money on it, so I paid off the loan and then I gave him the rest of the cash so we can get the car. And this green Bullitt was nearby. This is the one you may have seen in my other video that I considered buying. It's like 5 minutes from his house. So we had to stop and check it out. It looked a lot better than I thought it did, but it is kind of getting some faded paint stuff. But here I am driving the Bullitt for the first time again. I'm so excited. And this neighbor was telling me that I'm not allowed to buy the car back from him. He was saying that he wants the car. And I said, well, I don't think you know who I am. I'm the guy who owned the car and built this car. So anyway, I was showing the owner of the car the Alloy USA axle shafts as they swapped the wheels over. And as you can tell, the first thing I wanted to do was put the wheels back on and put the hood back on the car. And so we got some tools out and started swapping them back on. I thought this would be a really cool thing for me to do. I'd really like to put my car back the way that I sold it to him, the way that I think the car should be. And he can keep the wheels. He did keep them. He sold them. He got some money back from those. But I was just so happy to get this car back looking the way that I think it should be. So this was a really big moment for me to put the wheels back on the car because those were one of my favorite things that he had changed off the car, and now I can put them back on. And so it was a nice day. It was really a good temperature to be out working on the car. I was showing him how the studs on those axles were Alloy USA as well. They're stronger studs. I had put those in when I had the axles done and the ABS rings pressed on. And so here's the other side of the car, getting it all lifted up and getting the wheels swapped out of it. And as far as the hood goes, he still had the stock hood. I like the new hood he had, but if I could only have one hood to drive the car back with. I wanted the stock one.
Come here. There it is.
He did really nice things to the car. This hood was the 99 Cobra hood that I had given him, and he cut it all out and added the vents. You may have seen that in my last video, but I was really excited to get the hood off and put the stock hood back on. I just really think the Bullitt needs Bullitt wheels and the GT hood scoop on it. And so I'm not saying anything bad about his choice on the hood, because it looked really good. He did great work on it, and I hope to see that hood on my friend's Terminator Cobra for track days, as a matter of fact. So we'll see if that works out. But we were able to put the hood back on, and I was just loving every minute of this. This was so fun. I'm working on my Bullitt again, and I'm putting it back the way it was so I can feel good about driving it home. And so his friend helped us lift the hood on, and we lined it up and everything, and we got it on there, and the Bullitt was just coming together again. So I thought this would be really cool for our video to have this footage. I even brought my tripod so I could set it up and record this whole thing. This is a big event for me. This is a crowning event of the Bullitt's history. So we did the paperwork, and I had given him some money at the bank, and I gave him a check for the rest, and here I am with my Bullitt back in my possession. So I was able to stop by the Brigham City Temple. It's right down Main Street. We drove by it. I was so excited when we were going to his house that I saw the temple there. So we went there. And that friend of mine from the mission, we were able to meet up there in Brigham City. He was actually headed up that way. So he has 3 little kids and 1 on the way. And so that was really fun to be able to see his family. And then they came down the next week and got to see my wife and kids and everything. And we got to hang out again. So always great to see great people. He's one of my best friends, and it was great that we met down in Paraguay on our missions. So we were eating at this Wendy's, and a guy came out and said, "Hey, that's a really nice Mustang. Is that yours out there?" I said, "Yeah, it is." I was just real excited. He said, "You gonna put a spoiler on that car?" And I said, "No, absolutely not." I said, "It's a Bullitt Mustang. Bullitt Mustangs don't have spoilers from the factory, and I like to keep it that way." So I went and got gas. I needed to fill up before I got too far on my way, and the air in the tires was a little low. So I decided to go ahead, put some air in the tires, get gas, get everything ready for my drive home. And I was a little nervous on this drive because it was going to be about 5 or 6 hours, and I have never driven the Bullitt that far with the supercharger and everything. And it's funny because it's a car that I bought that I actually knew the most about. I've never bought a Mustang and known this much about the car, and I've never bought a Mustang that I built myself and did everything right with. So this is really cool to buy a car that I know where it came from, and I know it's not going to leave me on the side of the road. Although I do always worry, what if the alternator dies? Or what if the supercharger belt shreds? There's always something that could happen. So I brought all my tools with me and everything. But the Bullitt did really well. You can see here at 75 miles an hour, it's at 3,000 RPM on the freeway. And that's because it has 410 rear gears in the axle, and the 5-speed is the earlier 5-speed. The TR3650s and the earlier GTs didn't have as tall as an overdrive like the Mach 1s do. So as I was cruising, I did bring my SCT X4. I plugged it into the OBD2 and hung it up over the rearview mirror so I could keep an eye on battery voltage, coolant temperature, IATs, and just see how the car did. And it actually did better the faster I went. Like the slower RPM I went, the battery was charging right at 13 volts, and that's okay. I was trying to keep it in the 70 range because of the gear ratio, but it turned out that going 80 the whole way home, which is the speed limit, was actually better for the car. I tried to go 70, 75 to keep the RPM down, but it does have a big aftermarket radiator, and I think the extra speed helped get airflow through that radiator and cool things down. So as I sped up to 80 miles an hour, the coolant temperature dropped from the high 190s down to 170. 174 is what I was doing. See, here it is at 170. Battery charging at 13.5 volts, and the IATs down around 116. So that was actually really good. It was about 95 degrees in Utah here, coming home with the car. And this is just the beautiful landscape, and I was just cruising down this highway. I've been down this interstate a million times growing up, and all the trips I've gone on with my wife and everything, so it was cool to think of the Bullitt ripping past. And it was loud at 3,000 RPM the whole way home. I stopped to get gas, but it looked like rain, so I hurried and got back in the car. And interestingly enough, as soon as I got back in the car after fueling, the IATs were up to 150, and as soon as I touched the on-ramp for the freeway, they dropped back down to 115, just that quickly. So the car was staying cool, it was doing its job, intercooler pump was working, everything was great. Coolant temperature even got down to 168, so that was doing pretty good. And this is the same gas station that I stopped at earlier on the way up there, where I looked at the Boss 302 model. I just thought, like, I'd like to go there again. I think that'd be cool. There was a Taco Bell there, and I wanted to eat there on the way up, but it was closed, and it was still closed on the way home, so that's the reason I stopped there. But it was fun to go there now with the car, because I was traveling without the car on the way up there, and I just wanted to enjoy being there now that I have my car back. Hard to see here, you can't really see it, but there is another temple up this way, Cedar City Temple. So really cool place. I got to go there with my wife and family recently too. I'm sure you've noticed the crack in the windshield as we've been driving home. I sold the car to him that way. I had washed that windshield on a 110-degree day with my friend when I was doing mobile detailing, and just the temperature of the water in his mobile tank was a little cooler than it was outside, and there must have been a little chip or something in it, cracked it all the way down. So it's fine, I'll get to that eventually, but I gave it to him that way. Finally getting pretty close. This is less than an hour from home. As I get closer to home here, there's a mile marker. It's number 20. And for whatever reason, every time we travel, I say to my wife, hey, there's 20. Everybody say hi to 20. And we wave at 20. So there's mile marker 20. And there's even a mile marker 20 out by that lake we were at that day. Beautiful home sweet home, southern Utah. This to me is the most beautiful place in the world. I'm so happy to get the Bullitt back here. I decided to take a little bit of a detour and head towards my friend's house. He's the one with the convertible mineral gray Terminator and the GT350 that I've been driving around on the channel. I wanted to show him the car first, but he wasn't home. But here I am, keys in hand, finally got the car home. And the next day I drove it to work, and so I was really excited to get the car and back where I used to drive it every day as a daily driver. This is where I used to park it. Everything's back the way it should be. It's kind of like Back to the Future, when in the movies where the car's back, everything's back the way it should be. It was kind of like it was just a big dream. Now the first day I had the Bullitt home, I was cruising down the road, and this STI comes up, gets up behind me, I see him cutting through traffic, gets up next to me and wants to go for a run, so I got in third where I know I have traction. We honked it off and I gapped him. And I slowed down, gapped him twice, and I said to the Bullitt, "You're back to your old tricks again, aren't you, Bullitt? We need to stop doing this. We can't be doing this all the time anymore. We were always getting in trouble, and here I am, first day home with the car and already getting into some fun, I guess you could call it." But it's funny because a lot of cars don't try to pick on the Mach 1s. They probably look more aggressive than the Bullitt, but these guys think they had a shot at the Bullitt. But he messed with the wrong one because he got gapped. He did keep up for a second or two, so the car was pretty quick, but just not quick enough. I even saw him at the meet the next night.
Gosh, yeah, that's impressive. I just saw his last Instagram update. He had it making repetitive.
So that run against the Subaru was pretty good. I kept an eye on the air-fuel ratio. It was right at 11.2. So the tune seems to be doing just right. We'll see. But that is the story of getting the Bullitt back. Stay tuned for updates on the car. Everything else we'll be doing with the Bullitt as it's back in my possession. So I want to thank everybody who's watched all the videos. I want to thank the guy I bought the car back from. He took really good care of the Bullitt. He only put a couple thousand miles on it, and all's in good shape. I'll do a video on all the things he did to the car while he had it. Something too that was interesting, my brother mentioned on the unveiling of the car that we were thinking about pulling the drivetrain out of the Bullitt before I sold it, and I wanted to explain that real quick. The reason behind that was we were thinking if we could sell the drivetrain, we could keep the car. It was only a way that I could keep the car and then put a stock 2-valve back in and keep it. But to me, it just wasn't worth all that work to tear apart such a cool car that had everything done to it. And I'm glad I didn't, because now I have the car back and it's everything it was when I sold it. So thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for the support. Stay tuned for more videos and more Mustang content.